I held the envelope in my hands like it was a bomb. It had taken weeks to arrive. Weeks of second-guessing, of guilt, of wondering if maybe I was just trying to reopen wounds that were already infected. But the truth doesn't knock politely. It waits like a wolf. And that morning, it tore the door off its hinges. I sat alone at the kitchen table, in the same house I once decorated with dinosaur wallpaper and Lego landmines. The sun came through the window, same as always. Birds chirped like it was just another peaceful Tuesday. But I wasn't breathing. I opened the envelope. Just a few lines of text. Probability of paternity, 99.999%. Father confirmed. That was it. No apology. No fireworks. Just a sentence that swallowed 12 years of my life whole. 12 years. 12 birthdays I was uninvited to. 12 Christmas mornings I spent pacing the floor with a gift in my trunk. 12 years I lived with a lie so cruel it still echoes in my chest. She told me I wasn't the father. Said it with calm eyes. Said it with her lawyer beside her. Said it like I was some desperate fool who needed to let go. And I did. I let go. I let go of my boy. But I was his father. I always was. She knew. And she lied anyway. If you think this is just another story of betrayal, stick around. Because the worst part isn't what she did, it's what the silence did to me after. And if you've ever been lied to so deeply it rewrote your identity, this story is for you. Subscribe. Stay till the end. Because what I did next wasn't loud. But it was final. I wasn't always this quiet. Before the silence settled in, before the numbness made a home in my chest, I was the guy people called solid. Dependable. The type who showed up early, remembered birthdays, brought tools when your sink was leaking, and never asked for anything in return. My name's Michael Tanner, born and raised in Asheville, North Carolina. I'm 44 now, but this story started when I was 30 and still believed that love was simple math, honesty plus effort equals forever. I worked in construction, nothing flashy, but I ran my own crew. Built houses from the ground up, knew every nail and beam like a signature. I believed in foundations. Stability. Being a provider. Maybe it's old school, but that's how I was raised. And then came Claire. She wasn't loud. She didn't have to be. She had that quiet charm, warm, quick-witted, and just enough mystery to make you lean in without realizing it. We met at a local fundraiser. Her best friend was running for office, and I was there helping with stage setup. She brought me lemonade in a mason jar and said, "You look like a man who could use a break." I fell a little in love right then. Claire was a teacher, middle school literature. She had that way of talking to people like she saw something you didn't. Like she was waiting for you to catch up to yourself. We dated for a year. Moved in together after that. Marriage came fast, but natural. No drama. No red flags. We talked about kids before the honeymoon even ended. When she told me she was pregnant, I cried. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I still remember the look in her eyes when I pulled her in. That trembling half-laugh, half-sob kind of moment that makes you feel infinite. We picked out names together. Painted the nursery a pale forest green. Every Saturday I read to the baby through her belly. "Good night, moon, where the wild things are." It was more for me than the baby, but I didn't care. I was ready. I wanted to be someone's father more than I'd ever wanted anything. And then he arrived. Eli. 7 pounds 6 ounces. Born just after midnight, with a cry that sliced the room open. I held him in my arms and thought, this is it. This is the first day of the rest of my life. From the outside, we looked like every other new family, exhausted, messy, but full of love. Our neighbors dropped off casseroles. My mother came down and filled the house with advice and folded laundry. Claire was tired, but she was a natural with him. And I was obsessed. Diaper changes, 3 a.m. feedings, lullabies. I didn't miss a thing. I even took 3 months off work just to be home with them. But something shifted after that. It started small, Claire pulling away, saying she needed space, that she didn't feel like herself, that motherhood was harder than she thought it would be. I gave her room, took on more so she could rest. I chalked it up to hormones, exhaustion, the fog of new parenthood. We fought more, but never ugly, never cruel, just distant. Still, I never doubted Eli was mine. Not once. I mean, I was there. In the room. I held Claire's hand through 22 hours of labor. I cut the cord. I sang to him on his first night at side. And when I looked into his newborn eyes, I didn't see suspicion, I saw purpose. I loved that boy from the marrow out. Built my entire sense of self around the word dad. But looking back now, through the lens of what I know, I see it. Not clearly, not like a flashing sign, but in fragments. In the way Claire hesitated every time someone said Eli had my smile. The way she always corrected people gently. He's got my grandfather's nose, not Mike's. I didn't think much of it then. Love does that. It dulls your radar. You want to believe so badly, you don't hear the static beneath the music. But the music would stop. And when it did, it stopped cold. It stopped cold the night Eli asked me if I was his uncle. We were brushing teeth, one of our little rituals before bed. He was 7. Full of questions and missing his 2 front teeth. He looked at me in the mirror, foam at the corners of his mouth, and said, "Mom said you're kind of like my uncle, but you love me like a dad." I remember freezing. Toothbrush in hand, staring at him like he'd just spoken in another language. I laughed it off in the moment. Said something dumb like, "Well, I love you a million times more than any uncle ever could." But it lingered. I didn't sleep that night. My mind spun. What did Claire mean by that? I told myself maybe he misunderstood. Maybe she was just being poetic, or weirdly philosophical the way teachers sometimes are. Still, I asked her about it the next morning. Her answer came too fast. "I was just saying you're not his biological father, you know, emotionally. Like you're more than that." It didn't make sense. But I wanted it to. So I nodded and dropped it. That was the first time I betrayed myself to protect a lie I didn't even know was growing in the dark. There were other moments, scattered like broken glass I didn't want to step on. One time at the grocery store, a neighbor from Claire's old neighborhood said, "Wow, Eli looks just like that guy Claire used to date. What was his name? Jesse?" She laughed it off. But her hand tightened around the card handle. I caught the shift in her eyes, not panic, but recognition. It was brief. It shouldn't have mattered. But it did. Then there was the night she came home late from a school meeting. I had made dinner, set the table, Eli was already bathed and in pajamas. She walked in an hour later than usual, no explanation, no apology, just drained. Her blouse was buttoned wrong. She smelled like peppermint and cologne I didn't wear. When I asked if everything was okay, she snapped, "God, Mike, not everything's a big deal. Can I just have one night without you hovering?" So I stopped asking. Stopped hovering. That's how the betrayal grows, not with bombs, but with tiny cuts you convince yourself don't hurt. There was a time I saw an old photo tucked into the back of her dresser drawer. It was her and another man, arms wrapped tight around each other, beach behind them, sun in their eyes. I didn't recognize him. But she looked happy, a kind of happy I hadn't seen on her face in years. I asked who he was. She said, "No one. Just a stupid old summer fling. Long before you." But when I tried to throw the photo away, she took it back. Said she wanted to keep it for memory's sake. Something about that struck me sideways. But again I let it go. I let everything go. Because that's what we do, isn't it? When we love someone and want the story to be real, we edit out the parts that don't fit. We bury the inconsistencies. We protect the narrative, even when the truth is clawing through the floorboards. But my gut had been whispering for years. and I told it to shut up. I told myself trust meant ignoring the static. That love meant letting her be, no questions, no digging. It wasn't trust. It was fear. Because deep down, I think I always knew. I just wasn't ready to lose the family I thought I had. But that was the thing. The loss had already happened. I was just the last one to notice. By the time the truth arrived in an envelope, everyone else had already moved on. Claire. Her friends. Maybe even her mother. Maybe even Jesse, if that was his name. But back then, before the envelope, before the certainty, there was just this night, sharp, cold, and ordinary. Eli had just turned 12. His voice was changing. He was into basketball now and had this way of walking like he had music in his headphones even when he didn't. We weren't living together anymore, Claire and I had agreed to separate. The year before, though if I'm honest, it wasn't an agreement. It was her decision, handed to me in a calm, clipped tone over coffee. I need space, Mike. We're different people now. I don't want to fight about it. And like everything else, I didn't fight. We split custody. Unofficially. Which really meant I saw Eli when Claire felt like it. I'd take him on weekends, the occasional Wednesday after school. Every time he left, I felt like something got torn out of me. And every time I called to ask for more time, she'd say, "Let's not confuse him." Confuse him? I was still his father. I was the one who taught him how to ride a bike. The one who held his hand during his first cavity. The one who waited outside his school musical with flowers in hand even though he only had one line. "My lord, the kingdom awaits." And then, one night, I got a call from Claire. Her voice was sharp. Cold. "Don't bring him back late this time. And Mike, stop telling him you're his father. You're not." I laughed at first. Thought it was some cruel joke. "What the hell are you talking about? You're not his biological father. You never were." Just like that. Like she was telling me the gas tank was low or the mail hadn't come yet. I couldn't even respond. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. My ears rang. The room dimmed. I looked over at Eli, sitting cross-legged on the floor, playing with a model airplane I bought him for his birthday. I stepped outside, closed the door behind me, and just stood there shaking. Not crying. Not yelling. Just gone. I called her back 5 minutes later. She didn't answer. So I drove to her place. Knocked on the door. Not hard, I didn't want Eli to wake up in her house. She answered in pajamas, arms crossed. "You need to leave." "Say it to my face," I said. "Look me in the eye and say it again." She did. "You're not the father. You never were. I thought you knew. I thought it was obvious." Obvious? I was in the delivery room. I signed every school form. I paid for every damn thing he ever wore or touched or ate. I rocked him to sleep when he had croup, Claire. I stayed up all night when he had nightmares about spiders in the closet. Obvious? Then why the hell didn't you say anything for 12 years? She just looked at me. Calm. Detached. Because you were a good dad. I didn't want to ruin things. Jesse didn't want to be involved. You did. My knees almost gave out. She said it like I had applied for a position. Like fatherhood was a slot she needed filled, and I was the best available option at the time. A good dad. Not his dad. I drove home that night with Eli asleep in the back seat. I kept checking the rearview mirror like I was seeing a ghost. I didn't say anything for days. Didn't sleep. Didn't eat. Didn't return her texts. When I finally did, I asked for a DNA test. I needed to know, officially. Needed to know if I was mourning a lie or being gaslit into one. She said no. Said it was disrespectful and unnecessary. You've already been his dad. Why do you need paper to prove it? But I wasn't asking her anymore. I was done giving her the power to define my place in my son's life. So I waited. Waited for the right moment. Waited for a chance to collect something, anything. A hairbrush. A strand. A toothbrush. Months later, when Eli stayed with me for a weekend, he left a baseball cap behind. Inside the mesh band were 2 strands of light brown hair. I sent it in. Didn't tell a soul. Didn't expect anything. And then, that envelope came. I sat at the same kitchen table where I used to cut crusts off his sandwiches and tape his spelling words to the wall. I opened it. Probability of paternity, 99.999%. Confirmed. I should have cried. Or screamed. Or laughed. But I didn't. I just stared at the paper, then at the window. 12 years? 12 years of not knowing my own worth. 12 years of watching him from the sidelines after she told me I had no right. But I had every right. She took something from me I can never get back, time. And now? She wasn't going to take anything else. But she already had. More than she'll ever admit. More than I can even name. The day I got that DNA result, I didn't call her. I didn't text. I didn't drive over or bang on her door. I just sat there. Paper in one hand, coffee in the other, gone cold an hour ago. The silence in that kitchen felt like it was pressing on my chest. I should have felt vindicated. Like I had finally won something. But I didn't. I felt hollow. Because the man who should have known from day one, me, had to pay a lab to confirm what his heart had never questioned. That's not justice. That's survival. Over the next few days, everything felt muted. I went to work. Gave orders to my crew. Smiled when people joked. Drove home. Sat in the dark. I didn't tell anyone. Not my sister. Not my best friend, Nate. Not even my mother. Because how do you explain that you've been lied to about your own blood? How do you admit you were fooled by the one person you trusted most? How do you say, "My son was always mine, I just didn't know I had to prove it"? I kept remembering birthdays. All those candles and frosting smudged photos I had stacked in a shoebox under my bed. Eli dressed like a superhero. Me wearing a stupid paper crown he made at school that said number 1 Dad. I remember the day he gave it to me. Claire stood in the doorway watching with this unreadable look. Now I know it was guilt, not joy. The silence started to close in. Not the kind you find in peace, the kind you find in shame. And the worst part? I still loved my son. I never stopped. But I couldn't tell him the truth. Not yet. He was just a kid. Claire controlled the narrative, and any move I made too fast could jeopardize everything: custody, visitation, even his trust in me. So I did nothing. Again. But this time, the silence started eating me alive. I stopped going out. I ignored calls. I let food rot in the fridge. I'd walk past the photos of me and Eli on the wall and have to look away. It wasn't just heartbreak, it was identity death. Who was I, if the most sacred role in my life was built on someone else's lie? One night, I almost texted Claire. I had typed out the message. "You lied. You stole 12 years from me. And I will never forgive you." But I deleted it. Because the truth was, I had already forgiven her more times than I could count. Every time I ignored my gut. Every time I looked the other way. Every time I stayed quiet for the sake of peace. I didn't need to tell her I was hurt. She knew. What I needed was to stop trying to fix something she broke on purpose. I tried therapy once. Walked into the office and sat down across from a woman named Dr. Hayes. Told her everything. All the cracks and silences and sleepless nights. She nodded a lot. Said words like grief, manipulation, coercive trust. Then she asked me a question I'll never forget. "Do you believe your silence protected your son? Or did it just protect her?" I left the session early. Drove around for an hour. Pulled over at a gas station and just sat there staring at the pump. Because I knew the answer. Claire didn't just rob me of fatherhood. She robbed Eli of me. All those missed days, not because I didn't show up, but because she told me I didn't belong. She put a fence around my own blood and told me to knock first. And I did. Every time. Because I didn't know I had the keys all along. That realization broke me. But it also marked the start of something new, not rage. Not revenge. Just resolve. I wasn't going to beg anymore. I wasn't going to apologize for showing up. I wasn't going to let someone who lied steal one more quiet minute from me. She could keep her cold explanations and her rewritten past. I had the truth now. And I had my son's name written in ink, not just on paper, but on my heart. The comeback wasn't going to be loud. It was going to be right. But something still needed to snap. That moment came 6 weeks after I got the DNA results. Eli had a basketball tournament on a Saturday morning. His team was playing just outside town. I showed up early, brought snacks, even wore the old hoodie he once said made me look cool for a dad. Claire was already there when I arrived. Sitting with some man I didn't recognize, sunglasses, too clean, like the type of guy who checks his reflection more than the scoreboard. I nodded politely, took a seat on the other side of the bleachers. Eli spotted me from the court and smiled. That crooked, dimpled smile that always made my heart ache in the best way. At halftime, he jogged over and asked, "Can I ride home with you after, Dad?" Before I could answer, Claire walked up behind him and said, not even looking at me, "Actually, we have plans. Maybe next time, okay?" Eli looked confused. He turned to me. I kept my face calm. "Sure, buddy," I said. "Next time." He gave me a quick hug and ran back to the team. Claire lingered. Just long enough to say something she didn't need to. "You know, Mike, biology doesn't automatically make you a father. It's about presence. And right now you're just background noise." She said it with a soft smile. Like she was offering life advice. Like she hadn't just gutted me with a butter knife. That was it. Not the lie. Not the years. Not even the stolen time. It was that, her erasing me like I had no claim to the title I bled for. The audacity to act like she was still the authority on what fatherhood looked like. I didn't say a word. Didn't fight. Didn't correct her. I just nodded once, slow. Calm. That's when I knew. This wasn't love. This was management. I had been managed. I walked out of the gym before the game ended. Drove straight home. Opened my laptop. Found a lawyer. Not to fight for revenge, but to reclaim what was already mine. My son. The lawyer's office was a small, converted bungalow downtown. No mahogany desks, no gold nameplates. Just a firm handshake and a woman named Rachel who looked me in the eye and said, "Let's bring your son home." I gave her the paperwork. The DNA results. Old photos. Messages. A timeline. Everything Claire hoped I would bury out of shame, I brought into the light. Rachel didn't promise fireworks. She promised strategy. "Family court is messy. We'll go slow, but we'll go steady. Truth doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just shows up and stays." That line stuck with me. So did the silence that followed. In the months after, I didn't post online. I didn't confront Claire. I didn't talk to anyone about it, not even Nate, who I used to call my brother in all but blood. I just got to work. I started running again. Every morning, before the sun came up, I'd lace my shoes in the quiet, stretch in the driveway, and let the cold hit my lungs like a reset button. First mile was hell. By the third, I remembered I was alive. I began writing. Not for court. For me. For Eli. I kept a notebook, blue leather bound, where I wrote him letters. One for every year I missed. "When you turned 5, you asked me if the moon ever got lonely. I didn't know what to say, so I told you no. But I think I lied. On your 7th birthday, you told me I was the only one who never forgot what kind of cake you liked. I never stopped loving you. Not once. Even when I wasn't allowed to say it out loud. That journal became my anchor. Meanwhile, Rachel filed the motion. Quietly. Carefully. No drama. Claire didn't see it coming. When she got the notice, she called me. First time in months. You're dragging this into court? After all I've done? After everything? I didn't take the bait. I just said, I'm not dragging anything. I'm standing still. The truth is what's moving now. Then I hung up. We met once in mediation. She came with that same smug calm she always wore when she thought she was in control. Talked about stability. Routine. What's best for the child? Rachel pulled out the DNA results. The visitation records. The pictures. The journal excerpts I agreed to share. And then, the judge asked a single question. Ms. Harris, is there any reason this father, now proven by law and record, should not have full parental rights restored? Claire's silence said everything. And just like that, it was official. Joint custody. Legal paternity affirmed. Medical and school records updated. His last name. Mine by law and by love. That night, I didn't celebrate. Didn't drink. Didn't even cry. I just sat on the porch with Eli, watching the sky turn orange. He didn't know all the details. Just enough to understand something sacred had been returned to him. You okay, Dad? He asked. I nodded. I am now. We didn't say much after that. We didn't have to. Sometimes peace doesn't come with closure. Sometimes it comes with quiet, and the chance to start again. Not from the beginning, but from truth. And the truth was, I was always his father. The test didn't make me one. It just cleared the fog Claire left behind. And if you're a man listening to this, if something in your gut's been whispering what your heart doesn't want to hear, I need you to know something. You're not crazy. You're not weak. You're not less of a man because someone you loved lied to you. I spent years thinking loyalty meant silence. That being a good guy meant staying calm, staying patient, staying out of court. I thought love would fix the holes someone else kept ripping open. It won't. You can't outlove deception. You can't out-sacrifice someone else's manipulation. And you sure as hell can't parent from the porch while someone else rewrites your place in your child's life. If I could go back and talk to the version of me sitting at that kitchen table, staring at a birth certificate that didn't have my name on it, I'd only say one thing. Stand up. Not for revenge. For your name. For your son. Because being a man isn't about how loud you are. It's about how honest you're willing to be when no one's clapping. I'm not bitter. I'm just not blind anymore. And if you've ever been where I was, silenced, lied to, erased, then let me say what no one said to me. You still matter. You're still his father. You're still a man worth fighting for. I don't know who needed to hear that today, but if you did, brother, I see you. Because this isn't just my story. This is for every man who's been pushed aside while holding everything together. For every father who was there for the first steps, the first fevers, the first scraped knee, and still got told he wasn't real. Let me tell you something, DNA didn't make me a father. But it gave me back the right to stop apologizing for acting like one. You don't need to scream to be heard. You don't need to destroy someone to get justice. Sometimes, you just need to outlive the lie. Quietly. Fully. And on your own terms. So if you've been through this kind of betrayal, or anything like it, I want you to do one thing. Type, "I survived," in the comments. Tell your story. Or just leave the words. Because there's strength in knowing we're not alone in this. And if you're still in it, still fighting for your name, your role, your worth, don't quit. We come back stronger. We come back quieter. We come back whole. You're not broken. You're just beginning again.